The recording on the cloud, guys. Yes, no, maybe. Oh, I see it. Never mind. Today's session is peripherals and connectors. This session is going to focus on the overall features and roles of your peripherals. It also will include how to install and configure these. By the end of the session, we hope to be able to cover and retain the definition, to define the role, purpose, type, and the various types of peripherals themselves. Compare, contrast various connections, interfaces, their actual characteristics, the purpose of them, be able to identify a connector at a glance and what it's associated with, actual common pitfalls with these things, and including to be able to identify those that pertain to the input or output of the given device. A peripheral device is an
Diego, you're not
auxiliary
sharing your
device.
screen.
Correct. Sorry. Everyone else gets an F, and Justin, you get an A plus. Even though you're not in class, just give yourself an A.
Sharing is caring.
All right. Everyone can see?
Yes, sir.
All right. Perfect. So, as I stated a moment ago, in reference to these devices, it is a peripheral device is an auxiliary device that connects to the PC itself. It has some its function be that is a COM port for communications, that's a serial port, your parallel port for being able to connect to your printers. You have your USB ports to connect to your webcams and digital cameras. There's a plethora of devices that you can connect to nowadays to a PC to be able to facilitate whatever it is, be video, sound, to the point that obviously even have several cards of video to be able to even have what I like to call that nice gaming station where you almost have that 360 view, or the video walls that are now capable to be able to create those humongous screens that you'll see either in your sportcasters and or even in your campuses now, where there is several TVs being able to stretch out and create a humongous one screen illusion with ease. I'm not sure if you guys also seen that now apparently, I can't remember who created it, but there is a thing where you read a QR code. I don't remember who created this. So apparently you could actually just read the QR code, and based on the QR code or something like that, and say where it's going to be, you could put different size screens, phones. It doesn't matter what you decide that screen device is, line them up on that app, and they'll be basically mimicking that video wall. That's how amazing the technology and peripherals have become with an actual computer. These devices, though, do create problems. We understand the common functionality, but we need to be able to decipher at a glance what type of connector it is and its common pitfalls. So we'll get into the details. Hopefully those that did read, this pertains to the textbook pages of 133 through 194 of the book. Overall, we're going to be looking at customer focus and growth mindset to be able to lean on those two. And we can have here, Natalio, can you help me out, please, with the slide?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
What is a peripheral device? An auxiliary device that adds functionality to a computer, such as a mouse, keyboard, printer, webcam, digital camera. A peripheral device is almost always external and is always an add-on to a system.
Thank you. So see here that we have various input or output. You have your storage and your communication. There is just a few that you can connect. The usual ones that everybody was used to back in the days was the keyboard. Then the mouse came out finally, and we were able to move around the screen. Now you have some screen, including the one that I have in front of me, which is touch screen to enable you to be able to facilitate the process. You have your output devices and various input devices, as we see also over here for the communications. Any questions on these peripherals or what they do? Can somebody name to me what is a usual port that they think this is here?
USB.
USB.
Very proud. I hope you guys can distinguish with that. I think you guys were all born pretty much when the USB was invented. So that should be a common one. That is one that a lot of people can tell by the glance. There is some of them obviously that look almost identical to each other within that family, and we know that that's because they are all USBs. There's the original USB, then we had the version 2, and now we have the version 3 for the actual test to be able to decipher the speeds and or the coloring. We learned that, I believe. Blue is the one that's version 3, and the old black ones are in the 1 and 2. And usually if you see a blue with a black USB, you have a 99.9999 chance that it has to be USB 2, that black one, and obviously the blue one is 3, because it would make no sense that that manufacturer would waste their money on a USB 1. Questions, doubts? So down here, this little device, anybody recognize him with the little little two ears, whatever you want to call that there, antennas?
A router.
Router.
Soho router looks like, maybe, or even a maybe just a simple
A modem. Could be a modem.
Then this one here is this one looks also like a router, the one on the bottom, right? Like maybe that AT&T router or DSL modem that you have at home or something like that, right? Now, what peripheral you think is in the back of those? The one that's like in the back of that device. It's a network,
Ethernet.
Ethernet, right? But what's that Ethernet port really called? I understand what type of communication is using. What is that shape called? That connector?
Cat5?
That is a cable. Cat5 is a type of
Parallel.
grade of cable.
Serial.
RJ45.
Bing, 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 bing. RJ45. That is correct. That is the shape of the tip of RJ connect. So that's how it connects. So we need to be able to decipher between an RJ45 and who looks like an RJ45 but really doesn't. Who looks,
RJ11.
Thank you. RJ11 is obvious to decipher between hopefully the RJ45 and the RJ11. Yeah, I almost had there. So on top of that, we need to know the grades, and we'll get into those things in a while. But as for deciphering it, we're talking about the tips. We should be able to recognize that and which of the two we really need. In RJ11, hopefully we can recognize that one as the old phone cable tips. The one that's smaller, looks identical, maybe a smaller cousin of the RJ45. As for this guy over here, the printer, what type of port do you think I would be going to? What type of port? When I go into the computer?
I think USB, but a special version. I don't remember what it is.
There is a USB 3, correct? I've seen that on printers. What was the original port though? The one that's really guaranteed, which was used to be called LPT1 and LPT2. Now it's obviously they just call it plain old one name because usually you don't have to local?
Parallel
Aziz.
port.
The parallel
Parallel
port.
port. That is correct. That's a parallel port that usually you connect into the back of the computer. We also discussed that some of these printers, although they may be going into the parallel port of the computer, it may be on the end of on the other end a Centronics and or SCSI controller. So it'll be on the other tip, you'll see the SCSI tip connecting to the back of the printer. But that's not all printers, just so you could be able to decipher and recognize all these ports, be internal or external on a computer. In this case, what we're covering right now is external. We need to be able to identify those. In this case, those are the type of peripherals. Any questions or doubts on these here? The other ones are, I'm pretty sure it's easy. You guys know those, the USBs, which are here, usually are in USB. And then you have this guy. Before the little dongle here of USB, what was the port that the mouse and the keyboard was going to? Before the USB, what is the port that it was going to?
PS2.
PS5.
PS2, that is correct. That is correct. So now that we cover these, let's see if we can identify the common inputs here. Keyboard. What type of port would I be connected? USB, okay.
USB
Then
or
we,
the PS1.
PS2. Both of them are called PS2s, although I completely forgot why IBM called it PS2. I don't remember. I believe it's IBM. No, was it? No, it wasn't IBM. It was Xerox. Sorry, created the mouse. But the port, I don't remember why it's called exactly PS2. Somebody can Google that. That would be cute. Gamepad. Anyone know how that gets connected?
PS2 also.
Bluetooth?
PS2? I haven't
'Cause
seen
US
many of them
USB?
lately with USB. Yes. There's also one more, right?
Bluetooth?
Bluetooth, thank you very much. Yes, usually Bluetooth nowadays, especially your Xbox are wireless. You hit the little button to sync on the back of it. As simple as this guy over here. You just hit the little button in the back. He'll sync via Bluetooth to your actual computer. Or if you're having problems with the Bluetooth, worst case scenario, you could always connect to the USB. Who's this guy right here? Biometric device. How you think he connects usually? Biometric device
USB
is
maybe?
yeah, just like your camera or anything else. Most likely that guy's coming in through a USB. Yes. Touchpad.
PS2.
Also USB, I think.
I would say USB, right? It's a peripheral that's coming in. I would agree. Yes. Mouse,
Bluetooth
USB.
or USB?
Bluetooth or USB. Yeah. Joystick.
USB?
Yeah, most common ones, right? Microphone.
See, head jack.
Auxiliary jack.
Yeah.
The input for the actual mic, the round one. Anybody know if it's just called auxiliary or if it has any other fancy name? Okay. That's another cookie to earn. So that's 2 cookies looking out there. Barcode reader. Which one do you think that's connected to?
USB.
Yeah. And the mic too, right? The mic might be USB, right? And this one here, believe it or not, some of them are on a COM port. Some of these old ones are on a serial COM port. What's the usual COM port that it would be if it's a serial COM port? The usual one. I'll give you this much of a hint. It's usually related to COM1 because COM2 is a different size. So I'll give you that much of a bigger hint. It's a communication port. It looks like a VGA port, but it's the other way around.
AGV.
No, not the letters. Thank you, but that was very cute. It's the exact same shape. It's the exact same shape as a VGA cable. But what I meant by the other way around is where the female is, the male is, and where the male is, the female is. In other words, at the back of the computer, instead of being a female connection, it is a male connection. So what is the SVGA common What is that shape called? A DB what?
DVI.
DB, no, not DVI, but a DB, something, DB. I'm giving you a huge hint there. It's a shape, DB. DB15 or DB9, right? Serial COM ports, I believe, come in either DB15 or DB9, and COM1, I believe, my memory is correct still, COM port or serial port would be a DB9, male connector in the back of the computer, female on the cable. Not to be confused with a VGA cable. Pinout is completely different. So if you buy a VGA cable, even if it was one of those extender ones, just might as well throw it in the garbage because it won't work for a serial cable. Pinout is completely different. It's still DB9, we completely agree. But the pinout of where from one through 9 on one side to the other side because of the send and receive and how it uses it is completely different. Hence why they make sure there's no confusion. One on the back of the computer is always going to be male, which that's your serial COM port, and the other one is the blue one that you're used to, which is a DB15 for the Super VGA, DB9 for the VGA, the old one. Questions, doubts so far? Scanner, what do you guys think that one's on?
USB.
USB, okay, that's one of them, definitely one of them. Any other one you might think that might be? I'll give you a hint, sometimes this is all inclusive with something else. So it usually has the same port.
Parallel.
That is correct, the parallel port. And that's where you'll see most likely in the back of this device is a SCSI controller where the cable comes with the SCSI tip on this side and it connects to the parallel port on the actual computer. Webcam. What do you think that one is?
USB.
I would have to agree. The majority of them are USB. Digitizer.
USB.
Yeah, I would have to agree. The majority of those are USB. And lastly, it kind of already shows it to you there. Card reader.
USB.
USB for sure.
Next area here, as we see, is a KVM. You got your touch screens, you have your smart TVs, you have your media enabled devices. Your KVM, anyone know what that is? Okay, KVM, keyboard, video, mouse. That's how cute they are with these names. Keyboard, video, and mouse. In reference to that, usually you use that when you need to have several devices to be controlled by one. What do I mean by that? I would have one device that's a mouse, one device that's a keyboard, and one monitor connected to several different computers to be able to control them and or view them one at a time. And that, my friend, will stop and pause here as the ice cream truck just rang a second ago. And I'll see you guys at 1:05 Eastern.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, back to our previous program. As we were mentioning the KVM here, usually that's used when you have several computers and you want to just use one keyboard, video, and mouse. A lot of the times this is used in server rooms to facilitate the process in a server rack itself. So now you have all these blade servers in there, and now this little device facilitates the process. Obviously, there is ones that is much more sophisticated for the ones that we've seen for server farms. Those usually have the capability of connecting a plethora and not just 2 or 3. As for the actual touchscreen, that is an input device itself that allows you to obviously mimic the touches of the actual sorry, not the touches, but the movements of a mouse to be able to facilitate the process of picking and choosing what you want on the screen, to the point that even some of these devices, if you go into the screen and click somewhere, it allows you and brings out a virtual screen keyboard where you could actually type in your entry. As for the smart TVs, I'm pretty sure you guys are used to that. You could actually now broadcast as an output component to these devices, your actual computer and or your smartphones or whatever it is that you're using to be able to facilitate and have a bigger screen. Usually the video walls are the ones that where you have the smart screens out there to facilitate the process, because obviously they're usually, I'm not aware of a 65 big monitor that I'm aware of. That doesn't exist. But if somebody's ever found a 65-inch monitor, not a TV, then please let me know, because that would be an interesting thing to see. Next is the MIDI enabled device itself. Those are the devices that allow you to actually input the sound, be that it is for, in this case, looks to be for a little keyboard. You do have other MIDI devices that allow you to bring in any other sounds that a regular amplifier, like for guitar or any other device that you want to bring in sound to the computer. Questions or doubts in these input-output components? We have here our monitor, which everyone, I like this one, the little curved one. One that I really love, like I said, is 3 of those together. That's awesome, especially for those that love to fly or be in combat. That humongous degree of view space is awesome. Next you have here is your usual printers. Hopefully we are able to recognize those. And lastly, your speakers. If you're not able to recognize those, please let me know what rock you have been under for the last 30 years, because hopefully those 3 components should be very, very easily to spot. As for what they use in the back, we have the purple and the green PS2 ports. Those need to be identified easily, where the purple one is the actual keyboard and the mouse is the aqua guy. As for the USB ports, that we should hopefully be able to recognize by the shape of that rectangle, and by its color, we should be able to recognize which generation it is. The next one next to that there, you see the actual Ethernet port, the RJ45 one that we said. If you'll notice, they even help you out with the little pictures. So that's a little keyboard, a little mouse. You'll see here the USB hub insignia here, because you could actually connect a plethora of devices to one USB cable. So that's its insignia. And then you'll see here next to the RJ45, that little friendly network icon. So those are like 3 computers on a bus. There, you see that? That's the bus, the cable that goes across. I'm not sure if you can see it clearly. You should be able to recognize that icon anywhere. That is a network entry. That is 3 computers on a bus. Here is that famous port that I kept on alluding to earlier, your serial port for your dial-up modems. You'll notice that he is a male blue connector, not to be confused with the female blue connector that's right next to it. On top of it, they even went and tried to make it as easy as possible to show you that it is a lighter blue instead of this one. Now, another thing that gives it away is that it has an IOIO. What does IOIO mean?
Input
On and
out.
off.
Input output, yes. Input output. Input output. Yeah, and then unfortunately they use the exact same icon for the VGA. Hence the reason why I say be careful on what you look at when it comes to the VGA and the serial port. You must be able to decipher the 2. They are pretty much identical. They're both DB shaped. One is, thank the Lord Jesus Christ, now is DB9 and stayed DB9. Prior to the Super VGA, which now they just leave it with VGA, the old VGA was a DB9 port. Now this one is a DB15. Now, the other one that gets confusing would be a COM serial port 2. This is an old one, which looks identical to the parallel. Once again, it is female versus male. But I believe for A+, you only need to recognize this serial port, which is a regular COM1. Any questions on the variance between a serial port and the VGA? All of these connectors here are called DB connectors.
So to
DB
distinguish,
connectors.
sorry.
Mhm,
So
go ahead.
to distinguish between the serial port and the VGA port, they're always going to be, the serial port is always going to be male and the VGA port is always going to be female.
On the back of the computer, yes. On
Yeah.
your hands, you're going to have it the other way around. So the whatever's coming from the modem, that cable is going to be a female connector. And then the VGA port, the one coming in your hand from the actual monitor, that will be a male.
Oh, okay. And the LP one for like the printer is always going to be a female port and a male cable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
Do
then,
they still
go ahead.
do they still use the printer port, or is everything now Bluetooth still? Or
There is
printer.
still systems that are programmed to use LPT1. There's still systems that are either haven't been fully sunset and or were coded to use LPT1. Therefore, even though most systems, I would have to agree, do not have it, they still have these old systems out there, including some of them which you have to then go into Windows, and we're going to learn how to do that in Windows to mimic Windows 95 or Windows 98 environment, or even Windows XP environment to that application so that it can actually run. If not, it won't run. So this one's usually called a reference to it as a DB9 male connector. This is a DB15 connector. You need to know the holes, which is, that's where the name comes from. Anyone know why it's called a DB connector? Come on, somebody's got to tell me. D sub dib sub or something. D sub miniature. There we go. That's it. And the number correlates to the amount of ports. So DB9 means it has 9 pins. DB15 means it has 15, and DB25, which has 25. Questions, doubts?
What happens if you switch up and plug in the keyboard where the mouse should be and vice versa?
Won't work that I'm aware of. Some of the new ones did start working, but I don't, no, it won't work. That I'm aware of, no, it won't work. You have to switch it back. Be careful, because at least this one and the one prior to this, the PS2 and or the one right before PS2, which thank God is not anymore there. Those ports, you could damage them with the computers on, and you know, some of the old ones could damage it. Any questions so far on these DVs before we continue? And lastly, you have your speaker port, you have your line in port, and your microphone. Line in is sometimes where you might actually connect the MIDI devices. If it's not with a USB, some of them just come with an audio jack so that you could actually do a line in stereo. That's what that right there is, stereo. Headset, that little headset. It's just to let you know that it is in stereo. And the speaker is obviously a speaker. Lastly, this little yellow guy is the one that usually your fancy schmancy ones, especially the ones for flying and or the ones that let you race the car, have this game port or the joystick. Some of them obviously are USB, but just to let you know, the old ones and the original ones that came out were on this D. USB connector. Questions? Doubts? Okay. Now, I'm sorry, and I believe this is a, not to be confused with the name DB15 again, because this is a DB15, 3 sets of 5. If I recall, this is a DB15 connector also. All right. Questions, doubts? Or no, I'm sorry, no, this one's called, yeah, I think it's either DB or DA15. I think it's called DA15. I'm correct. Somebody Google that. You guys already owe me 3 questions. I'm getting very upset. Nobody's answering. As for your USB, Fadil, help me out here.
Universal Serial Bus USB. USBs use serial transmissions. A single host controller can support up to 127 devices chained together. USB devices are hot swappable. A USB cable has 4 wires, 2 for power and 2 for communication. The USB standard has gone through several revisions. USB 1.1 low speed or full speed, USB 2 high speed, USB 3 super speed, USB 3.1 super speed, USB 10 Gbps.
Yeah, gigabits per second. Thank you. The variance of reading this here, usually this corresponds with actually data. So if it was a lowercase, we say giga for the G and then bits for the actual name there and per second. If it would have been an actual uppercase B, then we would say gigabytes per second. So there's obviously a variance. This one could only transmit 1,000 or 10 gigabits. That's an eighth amount of what 10 gigabytes per second is. Hopefully we can decipher between the two. As we see here in the chart, we have the different generations and or maximum speeds of what they call full speed, high speed, super speed, and their different lengths. The easiest ones to remember is the outer realm, which is the 3-meter ones. And then if you remember that the 2 outer ones, which is the 1 and a 3, are only can go 3, then obviously the middle one can only go 5. As for the intricacies here, since it is 5 hubs, you guys understand what they mean by hubs? And why? Okay, no one knows what a hub is? Hopefully you know what a hub is. No?
Nope.
All right. A hub, you could think of it just like in an airport, is where several planes can line up and connect to a terminal. Now, in thinking of that, you can actually have a hub that is a device that has about maybe 18 maybe USB inputs and 1 cable going back to your computer. Now, you could daisy chain 5 hubs back to back, and it allows you a total of 18 meters. Good.
Well, it's like the extension cords for like the power that has a bunch of ports.
Well, you could think of it in that manner. You could use it an extension cord. So what they're doing is they're measuring the original one, which was 3, plus the 5 that you have. That's 6. So 6 times 3 is 18.
Okay, I see.
That's where they get the distance. You just need to know that the capacity, since even though you might have it all on one desk, the capacity of being able to daisy chain or put together is 5 hubs. Now, how many that hub contains is how expensive you buy that hub. Like I said, you could have a hub that could only have maybe 2 or 3 extra ports, or instead of having a one that has a lot of ports. In total, we learned is, hopefully somebody heard what Fadil said, how many devices can I have in total, somehow daisy chained with these 5 hubs, what was the total that I can have? On one port in the back of the computer, one USB, and then in total, there could be so many. $127.
Jesus Christ.
Okay. So
Diego,
that's one, yes. Mhm.
someone has their hand raised. Nicole, what's your question?
It just got answered on the next slide. I was gonna ask, like, because I saw it said total cable with 5 hubs, and then I was thinking like, okay, well, what if somebody wanted to go beyond that? Like someone was trying to be like uber fancy and just wanted to like a really big monitor and wanted to be like 100,
But then
Unique.
you would,
Starts to degrade once you exceed these limits.
Huh?
Do what?
I didn't hear you because I was talking.
When you exceed these cable limits, the signal starts to degrade.
and then it's unable to decipher what's a one and what's a 0. So it requires retransmit. So what we learn obviously is that 1 is equivalent to a certain voltage and 0 is equal to another voltage. Therefore, if you pass that distance, the electricity is going to degrade and it won't be able to actually transmit.
Okay.
We learned this also. We need to be very, very careful because these limits are critical, especially in networking. It's going to be very critical when you're dealing with Cat 5, Cat 6, and all these cables on the fiber optic cables, be long haul, short haul, on the distance limitation. As for your USB cables themselves, they come in a plethora of different types of shapes. I always remember which one is which because of the fact of its name. Now, how do I know? B looks like the letter B. So if it is a B male connector, do you agree that this here on the right side looks like a B? Hopefully.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the other one, which is the A, is the one that looks like a rectangle. A, it looks like a rectangle. I can only tell you that's the way I do these tests. Cute. Hopefully that rings a bell. So, hey, that's a rectangle. That's the A connector. And B looks like a B. This one looks like a weird shape. And once again, if we can decipher between the, hey, that's going to be an A connector. And this here is then a mini B. Since it's not the big B, this weird one here that looks like a trapezoid is a mini B. It's a regular B, mini B. Then you have the other one. Again, there goes the A male connector, right? Then this guy here, he's a micro B. Doesn't look like the old cheap phone that your dad used to have, the flip phone that had this connector that doesn't exist anymore. Well, instead of that one, now they came up with this guy here, which is usually now what a lot of the older Androids have, which now are also on your actual PlayStation charging to the controller, and your Xbox uses that one here, right? And you also have now the latest and greatest
USB-C.
is the USB-C. Yes, we'll get to those soon. I think it's the next one, the third one. In reference to the actual next one here, we'll see that then we have the A to micro A. Once again, since this one doesn't look like a B, it looks very small, similar to the mini B, but it's not. It's more rectangular. So that's the only thing I can tell you. He's the one that looks very weird. I'm not sure many people, that's a very horrible picture. But yeah, you might be able to Google something that's a better picture of the micro. Once again, the left is the regular male connector, and then the one here That's weird, real small. Some of you might have seen that again in the LG phones. I think I saw that a lot on the Nokia phones, that type of connector. Next is the one that I think someone earlier stated, which was a USB weird cable that they saw in the back of their printer, which is the B here, the male. It looks almost identical to the earlier B, which is just a 1.0 black with the little cream color, versus this is, you could tell, is the cable that is blue. We need to recognize this because now it looks identical almost to the original cable, but this one is coated with the blue. The tip is blue. So that's a great thing to know right away. That must be a cable that is for the actual USB 3. Questions, doubts so far? The one on the bottom, some of you may have seen it, some of you have not, but its name is a micro B. And then this again looks like a weird B or an 8. Doesn't look like the A. And this one hopefully should ring in because it almost looks like if it's two different connectors mashed into one, which if you remember the little letter B is two circles mashed into one letter. I'm telling you, bro. I got a cheat sheet for you guys in your brain. It's incredible the things that I do just to come up with these little weird things. There we go. Here goes a C1.
I'm sorry.
Go
I was
ahead.
gonna put the last micro B was used for, because I've seen it somewhere lying around my house, but I don't know what it goes to.
Some of them go to cameras, some of them go to phones. It all depends the manufacturer and what they want to use just to torture you. Lightning is
I do
go
recall
ahead.
phones, Diego. You were correct by that. This is cable wars.
Yeah, dude, on purpose, they just came up with those tips just to, they're all USB. They're just different connectors. They all have to go into the side of the computer with an A connector. An A, that looks like a male A connector, right? The one that's on the outside, yeah. It's going into a female A connector in the back of the computer, but on purpose, all these manufacturers, the Samsungs, all of them with their phone wars, they came up with the different connectors on purpose. Motorola, I think it's the micro, if I remember this guy here. I'm not sure if it was Nextel had this one or who. I think this one, if I recall correctly, everybody, I mean, if you guys don't recognize this one, then you don't have your iPhones, right? Lightning. The USB-C now is being used a lot by Samsung. The B is here is, hopefully these should be easy to recognize. The A is the easiest out of all, and C, I would say, because it's the rectangle that's actually not square, is rounded off. Questions? Doubts?
Do different ports bring different like speeds in data transfer or something like that? Because I remember hearing about like USB-C and like the new, I guess it's like kind of the newer technology in USB-C or whatever, and it's supposed to be a lot faster.
Yeah, C is a faster type of cable. It's used for usually on the USB 3. That is correct. And then the old ones that are just with the cable with the A, the black one, that one's on the lower transmitting for, but the new ones is using USB 3. It's still the same port, still the same cable connecting to here. On the other side is whatever the device's speed is its capabilities, but it's all going, do we agree? If it was the fastest and greatest computer, if I connect whatever this C connector is to whatever device this is here, let's take that out of the equation, look at the other side. When I connect into here, what is that? That's a USB 3. Therefore, whatever my fastest speed is what I'm going to be able to, and taking into account whatever this side is. As for the cable, the type C connector with the cable, that is the latest and greatest, and it's one of the fastest ones. I think Lightning on top of it is almost the same speed. Someone correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but I think those are the two that are the cables that can transmit the most for the best right now, the fastest. I think it may even give us a chart soon. Could be great. Could be crazy. FireWire, here we are, and its transmission speeds. FireWire itself is the other one, which was the one that a lot of you guys probably saw with your Game Boys out there, and I believe still the new one that Nintendo's using, whatever that is, the Wii we use, whatever you kids are using, does still use the FireWire. All it is just a different connector. The cable's length of this one is 4.5 and it's 400 megabytes per second. 16 daisy chain devices with this. This is what was pretty cool, is that if whoever had bought a Game Boy and you wanted to play those games that supposedly you can network each other with, you could actually grab the firewall and daisy chain from one to another, connect, go from the import to the and just keep on in a big humongous circle in a room and play. Questions, doubts? The variance obviously is in the speeds between the A and the B and the pin out on the shape. They're both FireWire. Questions, doubts? So as we stated, it uses all the features that USB has. All this is just what the manufacturer decided to interface, because they didn't want the big A shape going into the back of this little small device. So they wanted a different way to connect to it. Here we are now, the FireWire cable itself. Hopefully for those that recognize these here, you have the shape and the connector. Infrared. Fatia, if you can help me out with this one.
Yes. Infrared is an outdated wireless technology to connect personal devices. IR requires an unobstructed line of sight up to 5 meters between the transmitter and the receiver. Allows up to 4 megabits per second for fast speed IR, up to 1.15 Mbps for medium speed IR, and up to 115 kilobytes per second for slow speed IR. Today, the most common use of infrared is by remote controls.
Thank you, yes. Believe it or not, we're still using this a lot, the infrared out there, although it is very antiquated. And the worst part about it is that line of sight. You require that nothing is in its way. If something isn't in its way, there's no way the transmission will make it through a wall. A lot of these things are still being used in the universities and or different devices, because as they just mentioned, it is used for the remote controls. Therefore, those video walls and our devices, projectors, all that are out there that have that little remote control, they've actually gotten rid of it, and they actually attached this little device here, which is an IR receiver. When they're with this or an IR transmitter, depending which side of where we are, it is able to either send through here to the other side, and or if you want to be able to control without the control at all, you could actually program the device, which a touch screen itself and or through a web interface, to be able to control these devices, which the actual transmitter then sends the signal without using the control. You might have seen that now in the universities where they have that little box in front of your teacher. All of a sudden, he or she touches a button, the projector turns on, the screen comes down. All of this is done by infrared and by that actual program. Questions or doubts?
Actually, if I could,
Go ahead.
It's not a question. I was just going to say that something cool about the infrared is that your phone camera can actually detect infrared light. So if you look at your infrared transmitter through your phone camera, you can actually see the red light come on.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, when you press the button, and you're looking at it, but you can't see it, but the camera can. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Don't try that, please, with the fiber optics though. Sorry, it will damage your eyes. Laser. Anyways, I've seen people do it. I don't know why, but here we are. Bluetooth. This is our little favorite friend nowadays. Even in our car, the Bluetooth is a radio frequency technology. Line of sight doesn't really damage it that much, but it will degrade based on the distance. On top of that, if there is an obstruction, that will also impede the amount of feet. Does anybody know why any type of radio frequency, although line of sight per se is not a major impediment, it does impede the distance? Everyone ever looked at a crystal and they put a light into a prism? No one? No one?
Yeah, it goes like different directions.
Thank you. So if you prism, maybe I know how to spell this. Here we are. Here is my little friend. You guys can see him? Yes, no, maybe so.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Boyd.
Yeah.
All right. So now let's just play with me, please. Always play with my little imagination. It tends to work at the end. This little ray of light of sunshine, you can say is your actual transmission. So there goes my actual Bluetooth transmission going into the wall. As soon as it goes into the wall, it will refract just like a prism into that type of communication. Do you agree that this ray of light of sunshine is a direct message, which is a full message, versus here it's a very degraded message, and it only has really the colors that deal with it? So that you could always think of it, when it goes to the wall, it gets weakened and it gets spread out. It's no longer being directed at a concentrated area. This will help you a lot when you're dealing with and trying to get from with Wi-Fi or anything that deals with going through walls. Bing! Back to our regular program. Questions in reference to Bluetooth?
Yeah, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Could the since it is a radio wave, could the signals also be interrupted by other surrounding signals?
That is a very good question. As long as you're not in the same gigahertz band, there should not be an issue. And at the same time, as long as it's not using the exact same channel. I'm not sure if you guys are aware that each band has so many channels. What happens is, which happened to me here, I'm not sure if anyone has those little remote control fans for their house now. So it comes with little, obviously, dip switches to change, although the frequency is still going to be in the same range always, but you get to choose which channel by the 16 channels by these 4 different on and off dip switches. From there, obviously, in the combinations, as long as you put it on both sides, the both remote controller and the receiver will receive the actual transmission. A lot of the times in these cases, what they do is they give you a little dongle on this device so that it is pre-programmed to the frequency and to the actual channel that this device is. Be careful, because obviously some of these things are made in mass quantities, so therefore that dongle may work with another USB mouse. So if you see that somebody, or that your mouse starts moving around and somebody happens to have a mouse that's just identical to yours, you might have just picked up the wrong mouse or the wrong dongle.
Is there a way to reprogram those?
Pretty sure where there's a will, there's a way. You shouldn't be messing with them. As for, I believe, the frequency, the ones that come with a dongle, I don't think you're allowed to mess with them.
Okay, no, because I have about 7 of those and 7 other mouses, and none of them go together. So just wondering.
Yeah, because it's just like your keys for the cars, where the frequency is just so slightly different. It's and the channel, the combination of the two is what opens up your actual car. So it's set to a certain way. Now, I'm not going to tell you that there's no way that nobody else has the exact same frequency as yours, but the chances are slim to none that that person's in the same area as you. Manufacturers on purpose try to limit those things happening. There's plenty of channels and or frequency bands that they can use in that gigahertz band that they can use. Now, the majority of them obviously are in that gigahertz, 2.4 gigahertz band. That's why it gets recognized if you are going with the thing in the back and you decide to broadcast. So we'll learn what broadcasting means in a network, but similar to that, when you actually press this button, it actually acknowledges that you're looking for a connection. And then the two of them pair up, connect, and create that connection if it does not have a dongle. Questions or doubts? All right. I believe I'm about to pass this off to someone now. Something gives me some type of illusion.
I don't think so.
Well, fine. Blame it on me then. We can recognize hopefully here that this is the purple one for the PS2s and the ones for the greens, as we stated earlier, up close. Hopefully we'll be able to recognize that little icon, and that is what?
Keyboard.
Keyboard.
And this little guy here?
The mouse.
On top of it, just to play with you even further, they do it to the cable so that just in case for some weird reason you're colorblind, for those that wish to remember why I said colorblind shouldn't hurt you too much, is because the icon is what we need to be able to recognize. Here we are, the DB9, as we see, the female connector and the male. Then you have here the actual serial port that is referencing to. You have your DB25, which is your parallel again, your male and female. Take note, because I've seen it. Some of the cables are pretty long. You take the wrong side to the computer and the wrong side to the printer, and then you're gonna have to do it all again. So somebody tell me, which one should I be taking to the printer and which one should I be taking towards the computer? You can top or bottom to the computer.
Talk to the computer.
Top to the computer, right? You're gonna be laughing at yourself the day you remember me when you went and grabbed that 25-foot cable with parallel port, went from one side to the other room, and noticed you had the wrong. As I always say, I like to tell you guys what is it? Wisdom is not because how smart you are, but if not how many times you hit the rock and learn from it. RJ45 network cable. You should hopefully be able to recognize it itself. As for the color coding, I believe we'll get into color coding and all that stuff in a later chapter, but we should hopefully be able to recognize the actual.
The RJ45 is always going to have 8 pins, or does that change?
8. That is correct. It's an 8-pin.
Always 8.
And then the RJ11 is the one with 6 all the time.
No, it should be 4.
4 pins, and sometimes there's only 2 in the inside are being used, but it's always a 4-pin connector. The connector itself.
Okay.
Can't guarantee that it's always going to have the 2 pairs in there. Sometimes it only has.
Thank you.
There is our RJ11, usually used for telephone lines, and there's the 4. Now, I'll give you a little clue here. What happens if somebody calls you and says that the conference room is the little, you guys ever see those conference room phones? I don't even know if they still exist. It looks like a spider that you put on top of the table and it's just like.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So if they ever call you and they and tell you, oh no, Menganito just installed this here, and where every time somebody's talking, and someone else attempts to talk, so in other words, the other end is talking and somebody else attempts to talk, it breaks. The sound breaks. You can't, one side cannot hear the other. What can be the problem? The equipment's good, the PBX you know is good, the drop you know is good. What could be the problem?
You can only send or receive one at a time.
Well, now that we
Is that like a serial?
that is true. It could only send and receive at one time. Now we identified the problem. Now, what would cause this problem?
Using a serial port.
We're talking on an RJ11 cable. We're talking about this cable right here. We're talking about the phone that's on this desk. It was working fine in the lab. It worked fine while I was in the PBX. Everything's working fine, but I said, Manganito, go install this. He went and installed it in the conference room. And apparently now the duplexity, as the word that you said, is not working. Why and what can be causing this problem?
Did he plug it into the RJ45 port?
Well, then we wouldn't even get a dial tone, but that would be interesting. Getting close, you're getting close, but you went the wrong way. But I mean, you're getting towards what's happening there. It is something to do with the port. I would have to agree. Something maybe that connects to this port, that connects to the phone. What could it be? What connects from the port to the phone? You know, what's this black thing called?
A cord. Cable.
Thank you. A phone cord. This is what I was alluding to in reference to the 4 pins not always being used. Be very, very careful whenever you're using an RJ11 cable, because it could only have 1 pair, which means that it could only either send or receive 1 at a time of information. Hence the conversation of why this speakerphone, when somebody starts talking, the other side is unable to hear, and vice versa, because all 4 cables are not there. The capabilities is, instead of being, as we saw in stereo, or in this case, duplexity, is gone. Only have 1 pair. I cannot send and receive at the same time. I could only either send or receive at that time. Little cute, useless information.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
but what do you mean by pair? I don't
Pair
understand
cables is 2 cables. A pair is 2. So usually this RJ11, although it has 4 teeth here, the RJ11, the majority of them, it come with only 1 pair, and it uses the inner pair to connect the phone. That would be the 2 and the 3. Yeah, 2 and 3. So you connect that. That's usually a normal analog line. But when you're using a digital line on these digital phones, who can send and receive information at the same time, it's not a network phone, but it is a digital phone. This phone requires both pairs to be there. It's still an RJ11 port, but to be able to do the AND part, to be able to use 1 pair to send and to be able to use the other pair to receive, the cable must have all 4 inside. So you'll see that a lot of the cheap analog phones, although they have an RJ11 tip, only have the pair inside, not the full. So just beware. It happens a lot. You'll see that on purpose inside the telecom room, they have buckets of lines and they'll label which one's digital and which one's. And some of these people have gotten away from the regular analog cable because of the fact it is an RJ11 tip. If it is an analog line, it can care less about the other one, and it's not going to damage it at all. Therefore, why not just buy in bulk the normal RJ11 with the 4? But once again, one's cheaper than the other. This is just so you know. It will happen.
Thank you.
Hey, not a problem. Installing? No. You ain't gonna get me here. I believe this is where I go up to, people. Nah, Marvin. Or do I go? Do I really go?
No, I end up taking over at this point.
Thank you, Justin.
All right, so now we're looking at how to install the peripheral devices. These are honestly relatively simple. It's just simple plug it in and use it. Like there's not much to it. It's suggested to always, read the instructions from the manufacturer so you know how to do it properly. And once you do that, you'll also be need to make sure that the device are written for your proper operating system, because some devices might be too old, though they do have the ability to be backwards compatible, I believe, for some of them, but that just depends. Also, you have to make sure that the port is properly enabled in the motherboard, which most of them should already be enabled automatically just from the get-go. And then also they have the right drivers installed, which for the most part, almost every device, when you plug it in for the first time, should automatically set up a prompt to install the proper drivers. If not, then you can just easily go to the manufacturer's website, look for the proper driver for the specific device you're plugging in, and then it's just a simple download from there. After that, you just plug it in and hope it works, pretty much. It's nothing too difficult, it's just very simple. You can do that with almost every type of peripheral you have. And yeah, I believe at this point I go and pass it off to Marvin.
Yeah, and Diego's gonna move to the next slide for me. And to piggyback off of what Justin recalled, do anyone recall buying a printer and having that disk that they have to put inside the printer? Now, in most cases, most of the devices are already loaded up with the information. If you like with Nicole, the mouse, if you just plug the dongle in, it auto loads whatever information that's needed to get going. That's kind of neat. And most new notebooks don't even have a CD-ROM drive. So how do you put software on a computer when you don't have a CD-ROM drive? What's the move there? Anybody?
Go to the website.
You have to go. You got to go to the website if you don't have access to it. But if you notice, if you do have a dongle or some device, it will auto load what it needs to get going, which is the future, which is cool. Okay, so we have some connectors here, and Diego kind of hit on all of them, but we're going to go through and call them out as they are. We'll start from the top left. Anybody want to tell me what that particular one is called?
Ethernet.
Ethernet, but give me its government name.
RJ45.
RJ45, Josh. That's the government name. We want to use that. Okay. There's another cable that looks just like that, but it serves a different purpose. Anybody out there can take a guess of what it's called?
RJ11.
Not the RJ11. I'm talking about it looks exactly like this cable, but it serves a different purpose. Anyone ever heard of a crossover cable?
Yes.
Okay. Ben, you know its purpose?
What is it? Not really, but I've used it before, and because I used to connect Fireys with copiers, and they're kind of Fireys are basically a computer, and you connect it. You use a crossover cable to connect it from the Firey to the copier. So I guess it's just a sort of connection, communication between another device.
There you go. And Diego popped up to make sure I don't misspeak. I like that, Diego. I like how you popped up. A crossover cable, well, with the regular RJ45, it's designed to communicate in a certain way. So your crossover cable certain pins are repinned in order to talk to a different device in a different way. So it's for if you wanted to connect two computers together and have them communicate to each other. You can't use a regular RJ45 Ethernet cable. That's not going to work. It needs to be repinned in a certain way in order for that communication to work effectively. So
it's basically when you're crimping it itself. It's exact same cable. There's no variance in the cable or the tip. So what happens is that let's say that the first one has a pin out of orange, white, and orange, not to complicate too much, as a sending pair. And so it will actually inverse it in there and put it wherever the sending pair is, it'll inverse it on the other side, which is the green, the white, green, and the green. It'll switch then 1 and 2 with 3 and 6, and whatever was there the other way around, which hence its word crossover. The other one that's identical to this one, and the same thing, it's an RJ45, still a Cat5, Cat6 cable, is a rollover cable. A rollover cable does exactly its name. He rolls over. I love how they come up with these names. So now we'll learn the pinouts, but instead of starting with orange, white, and orange, just roll over the cable and just put the head in. So now it's going to end in orange, white, because it's just basically the pinout is backwards. Instead of being 1 through 8, it's 8 through 1.
And I said all that to say all Cat5, Cat6 cables are not created equal. They have certain cables have certain purposes, and they will probably shielding, and they'll try to give you a heads up with maybe a different color, but you can't even go with that all the time. So let's say you bring an Ethernet cable to the table, you bring a Cat5 cable to the table, and something's not working. It could be the cable, and you need to rule that out. That's a troubleshooting tip. Don't just say, oh, the internet is down, or this is not, for some reason it's not working. It could be your cable, and that can happen.
Because they're identical. There's no way to tell them apart unless if you look at the tip.
Or somebody plugged in a crossover cable into into your computer. It happens.
Yep, it will happen. Now we will go to the middle one. Anyone want to tell me what that is?
On top, the USB 3.0.
USB. I like it, and I like how you tried to take it to the next level. Give me a version as well. And
I figured that was going to be the next question.
Well, I'm okay. Good job. So be cognizant of that, because all USBs are not the same either. Those colors are there to give you a heads up, because those cables, the technology is different. You'll be able to move at a higher speed. So great catch there, because I thought you were going to say a USB Type A.
I had a quick question. Sorry.
Go ahead.
So I'm the type of person that I never really knew the difference. I saw USB and I was like, oh, I could just plug anything there, like anything USB related. So how was that affecting? Was it affecting the speed of the performance of
Let's
whatever?
talk about that. So your computer may only be able to work at a USB 1.1 speed, depending on the age of the computer. But if you have a newer computer, I have a newer one, and the technology's there to receive a cable that can move information quicker by having a device or a cable that will work. You're benefiting from that new technology. But let's say you just have the old cable, that cable still work, but you're not going to get the benefits of having that higher throughput that the newer devices are capable of producing, and if your technology is there with your cable and your device. So it's a holistic thing. Everything has to be there in play, but they have it there for people to still be able to use the other products in the same way. But now you have there's an upgrade there. If you can utilize it, it's there for that. So just keep that in mind. It may not affect you right now, but going forward, we see everything is going towards 2.0, 3.0. you'll probably be able to pick up the difference. You'll see it. So
Okay, thank you.
yes, sir. While you, yeah, go back, Kevin. You're gonna answer number 3, the top right. What is that cable?
Dang, you got me on that one.
It has some numbers on top of it.
Woohoo! That is my favorite one there. And this one always throws everybody off now.
Diego, want to play Advanced Warfare?
All right, man. Let's get on the Game Boy real quick.
Or Pokemon. Let's do a Pokemon battle.
Not even that. Maybe if we have a fire sale, maybe you'd like to have a fire sale.
Anybody want to help out, Kevin?
FireWire.
FireWire.
Thank you.
FireWire. and like Diego and Laz was trying to give you some tips. It was a major cable back then, and also it was used in camcorders and cameras, and Kelly also said in certain hard drives as well. Correct, Kelly? Portable?
Yeah, external ones.
Yeah, external hard drives.
External, yeah.
So it was a cable, and like we talked about, cable wars. Everybody wanted to get that accessory money going, using the same technology, just different end. So, but we got to know the ends. Bottom left, Mike. Government name first.
PS2 connector.
Yep, and now go even further. What type?
I believe that one's for a printer.
Oh, whoa.
If that was true, I wonder how long it will take for it to print if someone engineered that.
I don't know, but it is a PS2. I would have to agree with him.
You got PS2 , Mike. Somebody
Okay, so it wasn't that.
With a keyboard?
Keyboard.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. Oh, I said printer.
If you look at the top, I think it has a little keyboard towards the back. You can't
Oh,
see the
wow,
little mouse
wow.
squiggly. Yeah. Okay. Bottom middle, walk.
RJ11.
RJ11, also known as
Telephone cord.
There you go.
Another name
Government
for it
name.
is plain old telephone.
Government name, street name. Mr. Andre, bottom right, all the way to the corner.
I want to say USB-C.
Okay. You're USB, but we got some other ones before C. C is more smooth and okay. Go ahead. Try it again. Try again.
Is that a mini?
Well, yeah, you got that part of it, but mini what? Mini what? I need that last part of it.
Is that a mini USB?
Yeah, it's a mini USB, but it's an A or a B. What is it?
That's an A. No, with the B.
Okay. Just remember, if it's not a rectangularly shaped, 9 out of 10 times you got a pretty decent guess. It's got to be a B.
Gotcha.
If it doesn't look like a rectangle, that's usually the way I go with it.
Appreciate it, Mr. Andre.
I'm sorry.
Here we go. No, we're good. We're ready for the next one. So you're getting some help because you see some of the stuff on here, but we will go from the top and then you got to tell me where it needs to end up. So I'm going to start with Fidel. We're going to start from the top left. What's that particular one?
The purple one is PS2 port keyboard.
Go across to the next one. Might as well do both of those.
The green one is mouse.
Okay, I appreciate it. Josh, next line.
USB.
Go across. What's the next one?
Maybe a USB. Both of those are USB, and that one is the Ethernet. RJ40 45.
Yeah, Ethernet RJ40. I see where you're going with it. RJ45 is the cable. It is an Ethernet port. Ethernet. So you're right about that. Miss Ann. What's that blue one? And
the blue one. That is the landline something. I have the notes. It's dial-up modem.
Dial-up modem.
Right? No? Okay, it's a dial-up modem serial port DB.
Yes, there you go. Yes,
There you
the
go.
dial-up modem is what you can connect to it, but its name is serial port. But
I
it
wanted
is
to-
widely
yeah,
used with dial-up. You're correct.
Want to get the government, but yes, thank you, Miss Ann. Thank you. Who else is gonna go across to that big one? We're gonna go with Arturo.
The pink one right there?
Yes.
Oh, that's the hold on a second. Where's it at? Oh, the LPT1 printer port.
That is also known as DB.
DB, that looks like 15.
No, a little higher. Add 10 to it.
Oh, 25?
DB25. Okay. Who else has it said? Because I know we're getting close to lunchtime. Nat, go ahead and tell me what's at the bottom, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
That's isn't that DB9?
It looks more than 9.
I have to count.
It's 3 rows. Let's just say our row has 5.
DB15.
There you go. Also known as
Display port. No, the AV.
A?
EVG.
VGA.
VGA. There you go. Yeah.
There we go. Okay. All right. I'm gonna let you finish out too, Nat. What's the yellow one down there?
Oh, that's for like console, like a joystick and stuff.
Game port. Also DB. What is that? That's
B11. I don't know. I'm making numbers here.
Anybody can help him?
The game port.
That is a game port, but how many holes is in that game port? What's it's a DB to it. So
Which one did you say?
The yellow one.
The yellow one. That's
15. DB15.
That is right. That's the one that I say to be careful when somebody tells you DB15 and ask them, are you talking about the game port or are you talking about the SVGA
VGA.
port?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And the last 3, Miss Kynard, you have 3 of them.
Those are audio ports for the speakers, line in and microphone. And line in is something like a headset, stuff like that.
And that last one, and that top one was speaker. So you're right. So we're done. And I know, like I said, it's time for lunch. Diego's gonna close us out with the objectives on the next slide. Thank you, everyone, for participating.
All right. Hopefully by now we should be able to define the roles, the purpose, and the types of peripherals that we will be connecting to these computers, compare and contrast the various connections and their characteristics, especially the B should hopefully be the easiest one to decipher. If we remember that the A is the rectangle and the one that looks like a rectangle but is round corners, that was a C. FireWire is a 1394 main secret. If we could just remember 1394 will always be written on the cable. Thunder, lightning will always have his little icon. These things will have their icons that pertain to the actual characteristic of the cable itself and or the connection. At the same time, we should hopefully be able to decipher which ports at a glance and be able to match these connectors to their actual common use. Questions, doubts? All right, guys, I'll be stopping recording here. If there's no questions or doubts, we can all then